Hello and welcome back to the Reaper. So we're starting on a brand new plane, Mig-15. I've been looking forward to this for so long because it's just awesome in every way. It's weird, finicky, awkward, Russian, early days, just like Cap. Well, I'm not Russian, but yeah. So first things first, let's go through the cockpit. Another way we do this is we start at the bottom left. We wrap our way round right over the main dash and then over to the right. This is what we call a high fidelity model. In fact, it looks rather super high fidelity model. You get high and low fidelity models in DCS. The high ones, the expensive ones, you pay $60 for. The cheap $10 ones are the low fidelity ones. We've got a video explaining the differences in our educational section. But otherwise, let's crack on with it, Mr. Stahl. So first things first, impressions. Pretty good, pretty simple. I know there's lots of weird cogs and wheels and stuff, but it's essentially really a pretty nicely laid out front dash without too much crap. Nice simple stuff to the left, nice simple stuff to the right. Pretty happy with it all in all.
Yeah, it's not super complex, but it's very much a pilot aircraft. It's very hands-on in many ways.
Hey, firm. Right, I'm looking back and left. What I'm looking at is a grey box at the very back and a medikit, and I don't think there's anything there that's interactive, is there?
Well, the grey box is actually the radio receiver, I believe. There's one receiver and the transmitter. The transmitter's on the other side.
Hey, firm.
Okay. If you look above, actually, you can see one more thing you can interact with. That's the canopy open lever.
I can't get it to work.
That's because there's different levers for opening and closing the canopy. If you want to close it, you turn around to the right and up. There's one slightly higher up. Yeah. That's what you use for closing the canopy.
Okay, right, I'm going to carry on working my way around. Right, here's a thing. It's called a air diluter valve. Is that a thing or not a thing?
That is a thing. Basically, it just allows you to have oxygen in the air that comes into your cockpit. So you really don't ever want to turn that off.
Right, noted. I'm not going to turn that off. And a turning wheel of some kind above that. You got that?
Oxygen emergency valve, yeah.
Right.
Also something you won't usually have to play around with.
A firm, I'm going to leave that there. Right, next we have signal flare on-off switch of some sort.
Well, you missed the part of the oxygen system, actually. The part that you do have to play around with. That's the oxygen supply valve. Underneath the air diluter valve.
Oh, I see. Yep, a turning thing. Yep, got it. What does this do?
Turning thing. Oh, yeah. That's just your main oxygen valve you're going to use.
A firm, understood. Right, where are we going next?
Well, if you go slightly forward to that, you have a switch which is for the ARC system, which is radio compass, basically part of your navigation.
Understood. Do we just leave that on ADF?
For now, yes. We'll get into the whole navigation thing later on.
Okay, before we get to the thrust and those levers, should we jump up to the sidewall? We've got something, I can't quite read it. Volume, something about volume, but a receiver tuning knob. Is that a radio?
Yes, exactly. That's to tune your radio.
Jesus.
Radio receiver.
Really? Do you find it hard to look at?
Kind of. You will find more things like this that are kind of hard to look at. I don't know if you believe me.
Right.
So basically, the receiver and the transmitter of the radio actually have to be tuned separately.
Okay.
Usually, I think in the game there's actually a way of making it so they will both just tune together to make it a bit easier.
What are these, megahertz or these numbers?
I think it's called wave numbers or something like that. It doesn't really correspond with megahertz. It's a weird system.
Roger. Great. Can't wait to try that. Right, below that's a little switch called air brakes.
Yeah, that's your air brake switch. There's two different ways of opening your air brakes. The air brake switch will just leave them out continuously.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be careful though, because if you leave them out for more than 7 minutes, the electromagnet in the actuator will overheat and break. And basically the air pressure will just push the air brakes back in and you won't be able to extend them anymore.
Oh, I'm liking this plane already. Okay, that's cool. So never touch that switch is what you're telling me. Perfect.
Well, just don't leave it on for more than 7 minutes. When are you ever going to do that?
That's a good point. Right, should we jump up to the signal flares next, or where do you want to go? Right, so signal flares, we've got on or off. I don't really get that, but...
Well, it's just power to the signal flares. If you don't flick that to on, you're not going to be able to use it. And other than that, the signal flares, you have just 4 different flares, 4 different colors, which obviously correspond to the buttons. And if you go to F2 view and look at the bum of the aircraft on the right side, just right next to the Soviet star, you will see your dispensers for the signal flares that come out of your right side.
Yeah, I've seen different colors. So why is there different colors? I don't get it. Is that because they didn't have radios back in this day or something? I didn't get it.
Well, you do have radios, but radios can break. Also, you might want to keep radio silence at some point. I'm not entirely sure, but I guess it's just for different situations to signal different things.
Roger. Okay.
It's very Russian though. Like the Kar-50 basically has the same thing, and I believe the M8 as well.
It is very Russian, isn't it? It's like old battleships, and they used to send out different, I don't know, flags for what kind of attack they're doing. They've got a red flag on, sir. They're flanking to the
lanterns.
east. Oh, before we go back in, these things on the wings that stick up above it are called wing fences, and it stops slippage because these were the first fighters generation with swept wings, and what they found was that the air would hit the leading edge, and then rather than going over the wing, which is what you want laminar flow over the wing to give it lift, it would just slip down the wing and just come off the end here in a vortex, and that would be terrible because your wing wouldn't get any lift that way. So they put these wing fences in to stop wind slippage down the wing, and it worked very well. The same thing in the F-86. But okay, right, that is our beautiful little signal flares. Now the stuff under the signal flares in front of the radio, but I'll be damned if I can really get to them. You've got weird little switches.
You mean the 3 switches or the knob?
Right, your knob first. I didn't see that. What does Mr.
Yeah, that's just basically your floodlights for the cockpit.
Oh, right. So if I had a battery on, then that would be my floodlights. And what are the 3 switches ahead?
Those again correlate with the navigation system. They're for NDB presets. Again, we'll get to that later on.
All right. Do you want to quickly have a look at the... is that brake pressure gauge in front? Wheel brake pressure
Exactly.
gauge?
So when you're going to use your normal brakes, you're going to go up to 8 kilograms of force per square centimeters. And if you use emergency brakes, it's going to go up all the way to 12.
Right, let me try that. So you can see that thing on the control stick. I'm pressing that. That's my wheel brakes, and I'm going... It's even got the little hissy sounds and everything model.
Yeah, that's actually something to be careful about, because that hissy sound is the air escaping from the pneumatic system. So if you brake too much, you actually will, decrease the pressure so much you can't brake it at all anymore.
Awesome. That's pretty sick. Right, okay, very good, we like that. That's right, we can't put the thrust lever stuff off anymore, so below the lever there is what is called a wings flap handle.
Yeah, that's just flaps handle. The flaps are a bit weird in this aircraft as well as so many other things. Mm-hmm. So the position it's in right now is neutral, so there's just no hydraulic pressure on the system. There's 2 different positions for the flaps, as long as they're extended, which are 20 degrees and 55 degrees. If they're in the 20 degree position, you need the hydraulic pressure on the entire time. If you set them to 55 degrees, however, there's actually a flaps lock as soon as they're fully extended. Yeah. And there's also an indicator light on your dash, which we're going to get to later on. At that point, you can then actually retract the lever to the neutral position, and the flaps will stay extended without having constant hydraulic pressure on the system. Right,
okay. I'm going to leave them up for now. Next thing is my old gas lever, so lovely thrust lever. What's it got on it? It's got a microphone button there to talking, you can see, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's also the engine start button to the left underneath the black cover, and the entire thrust lever itself, the grip, can be turned and twisted. So that's used for setting the range of the gun sight. That's the buttons we said earlier.
Right, yeah, very similar to the Sabre in that case. Okay, so that's that. I can't find the engine start. There it is, on there. That's a weird place to have it, but okay. Okay, that's the engine start. Right, next, hydro booster. What's a hydro booster?
That's the hydraulic boosters for your ailerons. So the Mig-15 kind of struggles with roll at high speeds. I mean, generally is not an amazingly well-rolling aircraft. Yep. But if you go super fast, it hardly will roll anymore, and thus you get hydraulic boosters. So you basically will never want to actually set it to the closed position. If you try it out, you will see why it handles like a dead pig.
Roger. And again, it was teething problems with these swept wings. Aileron authority became a real problem. You should see the size of the ailerons they had to go to on the F-86F. They were like half the size of the wings, because the more you sweep the wing back, the less aileron authority you get because of problems with laminar flow over the wing. But anyway, that's another story. But right, so that's that. I'm just going to leave that then forever there. All right, I go ahead. I've got a gauge of some kind. It's a pressure gauge of hydro booster, what we were just talking about, basically. Okay. Then next we've got aileron trimmer left and right. So that is just what it is.
As simple as that. There's no gauge which will actually show you the trim, so it's just,
Roger. Right, next is something with a bread cover on, which is usually the kind of thing I like to press.
That's your fire extinguishing system. So basically, as soon as there's too high a temperature in certain compartments of the engine, the red light in front where it says alarm will come on. You can actually test that with the black button in the front. Well, you could if you had power on right now, where it says warning instrument. And in case of engine fire, what you do, you just throttle back, you turn off your fuel valve, your fuel shutter valve, and you press this button. Afterwards, you cannot restart the engine, otherwise you might actually end up with a fire again.
Alright, okay.
By the way, talking about the fuel shutter valve, you actually missed something there. Underneath the flaps lever, if you look, it's kind of hard to see. You'll have to scoot your head over to the left a bit.
That might even be impossible, but I see I know there's something down there, but I don't think I'm going to be able to get to look at it. So you'd have
if you're trying to hold right shift and then it's the home button, right shift home, you should see it move, and right shift end obviously move it back up again. Yep,
it does something. There's something there, whatever that is. What is it?
That's your fuel shutter valve. So you'll want to hold right shift and end for a little bit to make sure it's closed for now, because we'll have to open it later on in a controlled fashion.
Yeah, I do kind of see it. Right. Okay, it's closed. Okay, so that's that. Before we go up the left wall panel, there's a pulley thing that looks attractive and pulley. It is a left emergency gear release handle. Oh, these really do work, because I had a mission the other day when I lost my hydraulics, because reasons, I can't remember why, in my Sabre or something like that, and I couldn't get the gear down, and I had to use the emergency gravity drop pull. So these are actually useful. Is that what this is, a gravity drop for the gear?
Yeah, well, not entirely gravity drop as such, actually. So if the hydraulic system, the utility hydraulic system, which usually extends the gear and flaps and such, fails, this will just disengage the lock, and then you have an emergency backup system, which is actually pressurized air within the actual gear, within the cavities of the gear. You can then use that to extend the gear and the flaps. So the left one should open just the lock for the left back wheel or back gear, and the right one is for the right gear as well as the nose wheel.
Oh, a firm. Right, interesting. Right, got to remember that. These are there. Okay. Next, let's go left up the left wall. Amazingly more difficult stuff to see. What the deuce is all this?
Are you talking about these 6 switches with the green light?
A4M, yep.
So the switch that's the closest to you is the air start switch. It's something fairly important, by the way, something you should probably bind. The Mig-15 can stay inverted or pull negative G's for about 15 seconds. Then the little backup tank of, I think, 26 liters you have is empty, and you'll have to restart your engine.
How interesting. Right, okay, yep.
And the rest is basically all engine controlled. So if you boost the pump, your ignition, your engine instruments, your second tank pump, because there's actually 2 pumps that are supplying your engine. I think I'll explain the fuel system when we're talking about bags.
Okay.
It's a bit odd as well. And the isolating valve basically just means that your engine systems, which finally control the amount of fuel that goes into your engine, will be turned off, and then it's basically all about your throttle input. Which is something that's usually bad unless you have some issues with that system.
Great, can't wait for that. And then we're going to go up. We've got an elevator, just an elevator trim here, so a bit of a weird place to have it, like so far from the other one, but alright.
You do have also a lamp right next to that. It's a white lamp which will be on as long as the trimmer is pretty much centered.
Yep.
As long as it's off-center, it's obviously not. And one thing to note about the trim, as soon as you reach maybe about 800-900 kph IES, you will actually be unable to trim the nose down far enough, and you'll have to keep holding the stick forward.
Okay, useful. Right, we go ahead a bit. We're on or off for something.
Yeah, that's your external lights. It's just your navigation lights. So you'll have a red one on the left, a green one on the right, and the white one on the tail section.
A firm. Okay, now we go up again. We've got homing.
Yeah, again, that's 2 different modes of your arc, of your radio compass. There's the far and the near mode. We'll get into that later.
Roger. And reloading on the right.
Yes, that's to load your guns. There's 1 button per gun, which is powered by a pneumatic system, and you can also use that to reload the guns when they're jammed.
Right, okay, that's fine. So you got two 23mm and one 37. Right, so that is that. Let's move on to... In fact, before we move on to the main dash, we've got the control stick here. On it, we have a brake lever. We have... What else have we got? We've got a cover
button
there.
on the left is the air brake button, which is just a hold button rather than the toggle you have on the left. Also on the stick you have this gun safety cover, which is kind of like in the 109, I believe, where the cover will flip forward and serve as a trigger for the button for the main trigger, which is in front of the stick.
Yeah.
And at the same time uncover the secondary one, which fires 37mm cannons. And also one thing you're probably not going to be able to see is a pinky stick, pinky switcher, which is used to drop bombs or drop bombs.
Oh, joy. Yep, got it. Okay, I can't remember what I bound that to, but there it is. Yep, there it is there. You got your rudder, which looks pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's just a standard rudder, except for the fact that there's no actual toe brakes.
Lovely. Right, so that's that. Right, let's get on with the dash then. So I'm going to go right to the left. You've got oxygen pressure, is that?
That's just the oxygen pressure.
Oxygen pressure, that's fine. A landing light on or off. Yep. Oxygen indicator, so you check your oxygen flowing.
One thing actually to note about the landing light, it's somewhat offset to the left, I believe, by 15 degrees or so, because when you're coming in for a landing, you're not going to see anything underneath your nose. So you'll actually have to look slightly to the side to be able to see the ground and judge how far you're off.
Okay, that's fine. What's this big lever? Is that my landing gear?
The back lever, yes, it's your landing gear. It also has a lock on the left side, so we'll have to disengage the lock before we actually retract the gear.
Okay,
and like most other things in this aircraft that are connected to the hydraulic system, it actually has a neutral position. It's currently in the neutral position, so as soon as the gear is up or down, it will be locked, and you can just set it to neutral.
Roger. Okay, let's go down. We've got a gear indicator, I'm guessing that is. Yep.
Exactly, with also a check button. If you push the button, if you have power, it will just light up all the lamps.
Hey, firm, cool. Right, let's shift right to the right steam gauge.
I think you still actually missed one light in the top, which is flaps, the green one. That will come online if you have your flaps at 55 degrees all the way down on the landing position. Right,
55 degrees light. Okay, that's fine. Right, well, okay, then we'll start at the dash on the top left then, shall we? We've got a speedo in clicks per hour IAS, I'm guessing.
Exactly. Actually, not only IAS, it does have a secondary needle, which you can't see right now. It is thinner, so the thinner one is actually true airspeed, and you do have the main one with indicated airspeed.
That's cool. Wow, something actually, yeah, good, glad about that. Okay, you got that. Altimeter in thousands of meters, hundreds of meters? Thousands?
Well, the long needle is hundreds of meters. The short needle is thousands of meters. It's like a clock regard.
Are you firm?
And underneath the little knob to set your QFE.
QFE with this little blood. Oh yeah, set your QFE there. Okay, let's zero that in. Zero there. Okay, lovely. Next is a radar altimeter question mark? What's that?
Exactly, yeah, it's a bit weird. I mean, it does have an on-off button in the bottom left, obviously. That's simple enough. The thing is, though, it has two different ranges, so you can set it to the 0 to 120 meter band, which it should be in by default. And if you then just flick the lever in the top right, it will go up to 1,200 meters instead.
That's pretty cool. Okay, I quite like that. Very good. Let's go right. We've got a Mach meter. That's cool. Going up to Mach 0.92 is where this baby topped out, or was limited to, so that's cool.
Yeah, basically. If you're really approaching Mach 1, you'll be struggling with nasty side effects.
Absolutely, yeah. These were not supersonic planes, so they couldn't handle supersonic airflow. Right. A chronometer, and I can adjust it and do stuff with it, I suppose.
It does have, a little internal dial for the flight time. It's a little circle on top.
I've got a stopwatch as well.
Stopwatch at the bottom, yeah.
It's pretty sexy. Okay, that's cool. Red light on the top left of the chronometer.
That's a light that comes on when you're flying over radio beacons, so you'll usually hear that. There's also a bell connected to that when you're taking off from airfields. At the end of it, when you're flying over a market, it will just light up. You'll hear a ring, and there's a market there.
Okay. Right, next. Is this an artificial horizon, or what am I looking at here?
Yeah, that's the Russian way of having an artificial horizon. So basically, here the ground is fixed and the plane will move around, unlike what the Americans are doing, which is the other way around.
Right, so this shows our roll, our pitch. Okay, we can cage it and uncage it there. We can probably got some kind of adjustment there.
There's also a slip indicator in the bottom, and the white flag is a turn indicator.
So we've got turn indicator, slip gauge there, and thingy there. So everything you can tell about your aircraft here, basically. That's pretty cool. Right, let's go. Miss the gun sight out. Let's go right, and we've got a climb gauge.
Actually, one more warning light to the left above that, by the way. Which is if you have your flaps all the way down and you're coming in for landing very slow and you don't have your gear down, this will come on.
Oh, I was wondering if that was a light or something. Okay, right. No, okay. Right, climb gauge. So this tells you in, I'm guessing, meters per second.
Just per second, yes.
Whether you're driving or climbing, very important. Generator off light, apparently.
Yeah, this light basically, as long as your RPM are below about 4,000, the generator will actually not connect to the electrical system because it just won't produce enough power, and this will signify whether your generator is online or not.
Roger. I've got 300 litres light. What the frig is that?
That's basically your bingo fuel.
Bingo fuel. I don't like it. Okay, one thing that annoys me is it's got all these lights dotted about all over the place. It'd be nice to have them, all the warning lights together, like in a normal plane, but okay, fair enough. Before we go any further, I noticed we've got a lovely white line painted along the dash, vertical line. Have you seen that before?
Well, it's actually the first time I'm noticing that. I'm not sure if there's any point to that.
Must be a neutral stick indicator or something like that.
Oh yeah, actually there is some such a thing, I think. I read about it in the manual.
Roger.
So yeah, you read about that.
Okay, right, next is a fuel gauge, question mark?
Yes, the fuel gauge, as many other things, is a bit odd because it only goes up to 1,050 litres, while the internal fuel tanks of the Mig-15 will actually take 1,200. Well, the main tank is 1,250 litres plus two small tanks in the back, which take 80 litres each.
Roger, that is weird, but okay. Second tank, green lights. No idea.
Yes, basically, the fuel system in the Mig-15 is a bit odd. As I mentioned, you have these three different tanks. Usually what will happen is it will kind of pump the fuel in a circle. So from the main tank, it will be pumped into the back right tank. The back right tank will pump into the back left tank, and that will pump forward into the main tank again. It has something to do with just not over-pressurizing the fuel, as far as I understand. So usually what will happen, as far as the fuel usage sequence goes, you will use 345 litres out of your forward tank, then all the back tanks, and then this light will actually come on. And if you don't then turn the second fuel tank pump off, you'll significantly reduce the lifespan of it. The whole thing gets even slightly more complicated when you're using bags, because then it starts by using 100 litres from the main tank, then all the external fuel, then another 245 litres from the main tank, then all the rear tanks, and then the rest of the main tank.
Can't wait for that, Star. Right, got a green light. Okay, I've got a turny knob. No, we haven't. There's no turny knob. It doesn't work. Good. Drop tanks on the left crotch switch. That's just saying you've got drop tanks, or is that saying the drop tanks are finished? I'm guessing that means that, well, I don't know what.
Yes. So this one will basically just respond to the fuel pressure in the drop tank fuel line. If the fuel pressure is too low, which does usually indicate the drop tanks are empty, you can drop them. However, if your RPM are below 6,000, the fuel pressure will also drop, so you've got to be careful about that.
Roger. Then we've got some warning lights for the guns. Is that jams?
That's not jams, actually. That means they're online and working.
Okay, so they're working. Right, drop tank signalization on or off. I don't know what that could mean.
Yeah, that's the warning light you just talked about. You can just turn it off so it's not lit up all the time.
Okay, roger. Right. Tactical release. So we've got bombs next, I think. So tactical release, so you got bomb arm on the left.
Exactly. So does two things. It arms the bombs, and it also allows you to drop the drop tanks by using the weapons release.
Yep, gotcha. And emergency bomb release there as well, which is a cover switch and a droppy drop. Right.
Can also be used for drop tanks.
Right, very good.
Green lights underneath will just show you whether have any bombs on your wings.
Roger. Okay, so that's that. Let's go up to the top again, around the gun sight. We've got a normal compass on the left, and we've got a gun sight. So a quick look at this gun sight. It's a gyro-based gun sight then. So a bit like the one in the Sabre before you turn the radar on then. Okay.
Probably, yes. So what you have the big brown thing is a knob where you can set the wingspan. So for a Sabre, that would usually be, I believe, 12 meters.
Mm-hmm.
At the bottom left of that, you will see a toggle on the left side, which is just to set it to gyro or fixed.
Roger.
On the right side, you have a knob, which is just for the brightness, and below you see a scale, which can be turned with the twist grip of the throttle.
Oh, that's the one we turned. Right, let me just try that quickly.
Exactly, so that's the range indicator. The way you're going to aim this gun sight, basically, you're going to set, as soon as you identify a target, you're just going to set the size of it if you know it. You're going to unlock the gyro, and then as soon as you're in the range, at first you actually want to have it at minimum range, because at minimum range, the gyro will not move around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It will just be annoying otherwise. And as soon as you're closing within firing distance, you just twist that until, when you see the gun sight later on, it has these little diamonds in a circle, and those are supposed to exactly frame the enemy aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you don't have a deflection shot of, I believe, more than 80 degrees, you should actually calculate the lead for you as well.
Very good. All right, we'll try that later on. And there's also a switch at the top right. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah, that's a backup gun sight. You can use it right now.
So if the gyros go down or whatever, you can go ping, pew pew lasers, and you
I've
got
had that happen several times in a good shot out.
arm those,
Nothing unusual.
line those two, and ting 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 lasers. Right, very good. Back on with ventilation. Oh look, you got a little ventilator thing. Open.
Yeah, that's what you get. That's what you can use for ventilation at low altitudes, particularly if you have fogging or smoke in the cockpit if there's a fire or something like that.
No one likes smoke in the cockpit. Right, dash front right panel. We got a warning light. After engine air start, switch ignition off, and then a red warning light of some kind.
Basically, this is just a reminder that your air ignition switch is still in the on position, because the igniters can actually burn out if you keep them on for too long, so you're supposed to switch it off once you've done an air start.
Hey, firm. Next we've got a radio compass. So this must be the absolute predecessor to the HSI, I suppose. It's literally just a compass, but it looks like...
No, this is actually not an HSI. The HSI is underneath.
Oh, okay.
The radio compass is actually part of the NDB system of the ARC.
Oh, so this is now proper. It is useful for navigation.
Navigation, yes.
Right, understood. Then we've got. Is that the HSI below then?
Exactly. So the HSI is a little bit weird because you don't have the entire thing moving. It's just a plane icon that moves around. What you can do though, if you want to set a course that you want to fly on, underneath the HSI you will find the heading knob. So you can turn the entire thing, and you would just set whatever course you want to head towards in the top center, and then just keep the aircraft pointed towards that.
Okay, fine. Fast slave compass. What's that?
So, the thing about the HSI is it doesn't necessarily always move particularly quickly, and when you're doing hard maneuvers, it can actually happen that it's going to take a minute or two before it's fully aligned. I mean, it's going to be mostly aligned, but if you then need an accurate reading, you push in the fast slave button and it will just move it a lot quicker.
Yep, understood. Right, this is now below. We've got a pressure plus a temperature plus a pressure. Something to do with the engine, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's the big thing is the pressure of your main fuel line. Underneath you have oil temperature and oil pressure.
Lovely, beautiful. Something to keep an eye on. Right, top right, RPM, engine RPM in...
Just revolutions per minute.
RPM, so wow, you can really drive that baby hard. 1500 RPMs.
Yeah, usually not going to get it that high. Tops out at around 12k. I'm not entirely sure what you'd have to do to get it up to 15.
Oh, Germs. A whopping great compressor wheel on the front, so I'm amazed it goes that fast, but okay, cool. Right, engine gas temperature then, up to about 750 metric, that's fine. Another pressure was...
Yeah, that's actually another fuel pressure gauge. So the thing is, if you're flying very high, the fuel pressure in the main fuel line will drop significantly. And this is to more accurately monitor fuel pressure at low pressures.
Roger. Okay, we've got battery. I think it's a battery up. I'm struggling to get to it, to be honest. There's
It's not a battery as such. It's an ampere and voltmeter, so it will show you current usually.
Yeah.
And if you then hold the button underneath, it will instead use the yellow scale and show you voltage.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay. Very good. Next is cockpit pressure? Question mark.
Yeah, this basically shows you the pressure differential between the cockpit and the outside air.
Oh, very good. Fine. Right. Excellent. Yeah. Okay. Fine. That's all good. Right.
There's one more little one more little switch you probably missed in the very right corner of the dash, which is your pitot heat and clock heat as well.
God, it's any more hard to look at. Right. Well, I've turned it off now, and I'll never be able to get it back on because I can't see it again, so it's off forever.
Well,
right.
You will get the tooltip even through walls and stuff. So.
Roger. Okay. Right. Next on. Hang on. Track IR is struggling at this point. Right.
Mine as well.
Emergency landing gear all around this kind of area now. There's a pressure gauge for something. Don't know what that pressure gauge is.
There's several pressure gauges on that panel actually. So the emergency landing gear valve is what I talked about earlier. You have pressurized air within the cavities of the landing gear, and the valve in the very front will show you the pressure from that system.
Mm-hmm.
And the gauge to the back right of that valve is the main hydraulic system.
Yeah, that's the main hydraulic system. Yeah, got it.
Exactly.
And then this emergency landing gear, and this is a turny thing. You can turn the air on, or?
Yes. So what you basically do if your main hydraulics are damaged and you're losing too much pressure to actually extend your landing gear and flaps, you would lower your landing gear lever. You would unlock the landing gear using those red pulleys on the left and right, and then you would open this valve, and it should extend the gear either way.
Okay. What's the third gauge then? Okay.
That's basically the same thing, just for the flaps.
Yep. So you got your air pressure, emergency air pressure flaps, and yep, same thing. Right.
And to the back of that, you will see the main pneumatic system, which is used for braking as well as gun reloading. Now, if you keep braking and just basically mashing your brake button, you will see the needle will slowly move to the left. So if you do that often enough, eventually you'll actually end up with no pressure and unable to brake. Okay. This will be refilled when you're rearming. Roger.
Right. Okay, side panel, a bunch of little switches there.
Yeah, that's your main circuit breaker board. So from left to right, you have the accumulator switch, your generator switch, and your, I think it's the landing light switch, which is kind of hidden. Yeah, no light.
Mm-hmm.
Then in the second row, you have your trim, your artificial horizon power, as well as your radio power.
Mm-hmm.
And the third and fourth row, that can be kind of annoying. There's actually 4 switches in a row, so those can be really hard to see.
Yeah, no,
so the first 2 are your bombs power and your emergency drop power, and the other 2 are your arc and your radio compass power. And the very bottom row is basically all about your cannons. It's your N23 power, your N37 power, your gun-side power, and on the very right, you don't really need that necessarily, is your gun cam power.
Roger, I never get into a lot of those, I can tell you that right now, but alright, we'll sort of worry about that later.
You don't really need to know what all of those do, to be honest.
Good. Right, let's go back again, and what's this, radio?
This is actually navigation. This is your arc panel.
Oh, this is navigation, right.
Yes.
And how does it do it, from ground beacons, or...?
Exactly, it's all about one-directional beacons.
Right, okay, so ADF type thing, okay. Right, well I don't particularly want to go into that now, but that is that panel. We've got a big turny thing on the side, a big golden turny thing, and it is
that's your emergency system filling valve, it's called. It's for your pneumatic system.
Yes.
So if you really lose all your brake power, you can still use that to recharge your brake pressure up to 50 kilograms per centimeter, square centimeter it is.
Copy. We've got a multicolored thing, valve down at the bottom there that looks pretty...
Actually, still 2 knobs to the front of that, which do not belong to the arc system. Those are your UV light rheostats. So how dashboard lighting works in the Mig-15 is, unlike in other aircraft, you have the gauges painted with fluorescent paint, and you have 2 UV lights lighting up your dashboard.
Oh,
So
I see
you
them.
will-
There's one and there's one. Right, yeah.
Yeah, it's the big black things basically in front of you.
Okay, how interesting. Okay,
And that will basically cause the gauges to glow in a green light and allow you to see at night.
cool.
Although the Mig-15 is not particularly well suited for flying at night due to its lack of instrumentation.
Okay, should be interesting. And a turny valve thing. Which is
Yeah,
Cockpit
that's
air
your
valve.
canopy sealing valve. So this is how you hermetically seal it off, and also it's used for climatization of the aircraft, because once you close it, you get to choose blue, yellow, or red.
Mm-hmm.
Blue meaning it's just cold air, red is hot air, and yellow is a mixture. Basically, you have 2 lines, which I believe come from the compressor. One of them is insulated and pretty short, which supplies you with hot air. The other one is not insulated and significantly longer, and that means the air flowing past will actually cool it off.
Firm, very good. Okay, I think that's as far as we can go. I can't. Oh no, there is
Oh,
something
there is-
back up there. Yeah, I can't.
There's actually the emergency canopy jet, isn't it? Your right thigh.
Is that the big red
Red
thing? Right. So
Yes.
don't do that. There's also another turny valve right at the very back. Cockpit filling valve. Oh, okay, we talked about that.
Yeah, there's 2 actually, but you don't have to use those much, to be honest.
Roger.
It's all about the pressurization system of the aircraft.
Okay, I can't get back there any further with my. Okay, so I think that's.
Well,
pretty
there's just one more thing basically, and that's your radio transmitter.
Where is this roughly?
It's in the very back. It's in the rear panel. It's like
yeah, I've kind of
big
got
pretty
there.
box.
Yeah, that is a radio, and it is all doable. There's no way you could do this in the air. I could tell you that, but.
Well, you will have to at times.
Sorry.
Actually, one thing that you have not talked about yet is the canopy opening and closing levers. So if you look to your 3 o'clock and then slightly up, you will see a big black knob above you. If you click that, you'll close the canopy.
Big black knob, I love that kind of thing. Right, so I've done the one at the top, and it didn't close the canopy. It's...
Did you play around with the pressurization knob first? Because if you locked the cockpit basically before it's actually closed, it won't work.
Probably. Yep, so what we'll do is we'll use that as the startup procedure, but just to say now, though, that these are the knobs for doing the cockpit, basically. Okay, that's fine. Right, yeah, so that was the cockpit. There's some cool stuff and some weird stuff, but I hope that helps. Next thing we're going to do is go and do our startup, so we'll see you later.